In 3, 2, 1.
Thamane, dumela.
Dumela Rampo.
Would like to thank Batswana botlhe kwa gae ba ileng gore have joined us today on this Facebook live chat, this live stream. And I'd like to thank you as well for taking your time off of your busy schedule, to Batswana. Not just me, but also le ba kwa gae ka dipotso tse gore ba re di hile, and I'd just like to say thank you for that. So I want us to go straight into it. But before I think it would be remiss for me COVID-19. How has that affected CEDA? How have the last 6 months been?
Okay. Thank you very much, and let me just greet Batswana. It's been a while since I last met you, and you still look young. Yes, clearly COVID hasn't affected you.
Yeah.
In any case, COVID has affected a lot of businesses, and no one has been spared. CEDA mokgosu o tlhaga re ne ra lemoga gore tota dikgwebo tsotlhe tsa rona di a go amega mme ka ha ra amegileng ka teng ke gore dituelo tse re ntseng re di bona mo dikgwebong ntse di butsana mme tota batho ba modimo ba sa itire e le seemo se se leng teng re ne ra ira ditshekatsheko tse di tseneletseng tse di neng di supa gore thata bogolo jang bojanala bone bo amiwa thata ke segajajase mme e se gone hela ne re ra lemoga tota le dikgwebo tse dingwe tse e leng gore di mo ikonomi ka go bane go na le gone gore re tsengwa mo serubing mme ka jalo tota dituelo tse e leng gore ne re di sologetse ga ya nna tsone tse re neng re di tlwaetse mme ga go nna hela jalo re ne ra tshwanela ke gona gore tsone dikgwebo tse gore re ne re di thusitse ka madi re ira jang re le ba lekana la CEDA gore re ire gore tsone di nne di tswelle di tse moanyana di kgone go tshela gore di bipe tatlhegelo ditiro ke so bona ne ra simolla ka go tsa manene wa tshwana le bo COVID relief fund kana emergency response fund ya COVID le bo le tlhabile hela jalo maybe le gape tse dingwe ra tolotsa dituelo gore ba simole go duela after 6 months mme seemo se raiso ga ise se ritibale re solohela gore ka ponelopele ya rona tota mme re sa eletse jalo go tla tswella go a kopile go ngo bongwa ga etla
ke ona mathata a re mo gone sengwe se e leng gore ke ne ka se bona se iragala even with myself was ha re bona these guidelines re ne ra tsaya gore gongwe di tswa as a result ya COVID, but I think as I researched more and more, I realized that's actually not the case. Could you lay a foundation for us, background, these guidelines, and COVID, how it affected them?
Le khutamaga ya board ya CEDA le batsadi ba rona ko ministry bo permanent secretary le minister hela jalo ne ra tsa tshwetso ya gore ka gore melawana ya rona ya tsamaiso yone di guideline sale e se ka sekwa ka ngwaga wa 2008 diphetogo tse ntseng di diragala mo marakeng mo ikonomi di irile gore melawana ya teng e hetwe ke nako e ne nne kganyo ya ntla gore tota we need to review them after almost 12 years sa bobedi ha re ntse re lebeletse nako e ne re ira melawana ya ka 2008 le gompieno ra be re lebella gore the average deal ticket e leng teng kana loan on average e ne a oketsega mme gape ne re lebella gore go na le dikgwetlho tse di leng teng tse e leng gore Batswana ne ba re bolelela mme ra reetsa re kompone reetsa ra reetsa dilelo le dikgakololo tsa Batswana le ba ba kgalanyela ra ba reetsa le bo ra be re lebella gone gore mme Batswana ba bua gore dintlha dingwe di ne di ba mehama e mengwe ka ha mosi so sa ntlha re ka tsa se ka isa gore banana ba ne ba na le mathata a selo kana security ra be re le ba ntlha eo mme ra be re le ba gone gore ha re tsa morokotso how gakologela sentle ka bo 2008 morokotso ene seelo sekao se ne se beilwe ke Bank of Botswana mo go teng prime lending rate e ne le go double digits. Yes, me ene a hokotsega over the years to the extent that by the time re tla go ira thulaganyo ya go seka melawana ya tsamaiso ene le bo 5.75 rona wa maximum interest rate le 7.5 o ka lemoga gore gore re ne re sa thole
re se le tshwana hela
ene re se re tshwana hela mme kana kono ya CEDA ke gore re kgone gore re tutuntshe dikgwebo tse di potlana ebile tse di simologang go bosheng hela gore di banka di kgone gore di godise mme le ha go ntse yalo re be re bona gore tautuna o na bua ire la thoma mo setulo a ntsha moalo wa gagwe wa transformation mme ha re lebeletse re tsere mahoko a gagwe ne ra lebella gore go na le mahamamo wa economy ya ka manufacturing o eleng gore tota Batswana ne le babogedi mo gaming kana mo motshamekong wa teng they were just spectators ra be re ira mo go teng manufacturing study ne ya re tlhamaletsa gore re tshwanetse re ire eng le eng mme ra lebella ditshekatsheko tse di irilweng ke le ya tsa National Entrepreneurship Policy ra bala gore mo teng ra tlhodumela mo teng gore go na le mme ra lebella all other policies tsa Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry tse ne di irwa ke tona wa rona le mokwaledi wa senela ruri wa rona mme tsotlhe tseo ra be re bona gore mme mare sekaseke melawana ya tsamaiso ya rona so ne e sa ire go gore tota ne re tsibogela kganya COVID ne ntse re le mo tseleng mme ka ha o ra COVID e ramileng ka teng re mphoe ke gona gore ne re na le thulaganyo ene tsepame thulaganyo ya teng e ne le gore sa ntla COVID ne a rira gore re skara disimolosa ka nako ya ka witse ne re le mo serubing mme tota ditiragatso di sa kgone go nna teng sa bobedi ne a nna gone gore kana ha o sena go ala melawana ya tsamaiso o e rolela Batswana o tshwanetse o ire mo go teng tota stakeholder engagement ya gore yaanong o e tsharalatse le lehatshe o e tlhalose ka boripana ne re na le one thulaganyo eo ya di-town hall thulaganyo ya di-activation thulaganyo ya gore ra go bua le the sectoral business community re tsa ba manufacturing re nna ha se re bua le bone ba tourism hela jalo ga ise di diragala dio tse ka mabaka one COVID mme ntse re tsweletse ra setse ra address di-council kgolo tse pedi South East District Council ke address le Gantsi District Council mme tsa re mana go e sa hidiseng pelo ke go North West le go Chobe mme ke ra gore ga ra ipona tsa paretso mme re lebagala gore thulaganyo e diranye ke nngwe a tse leng gore tota re ntse ra di atolotsa retso
ke tsa gore ke le moruta bana ko madikole ke tshwanela ke gore re ha bana ba ka botsa ke kgona gore ke arabe dipotso tse dingwe tsa mananeo that's why I think it was important gore ke kopane le lona ke botse dilo tse dingwe tse ke le ho one aspect ke utwang it's quite strongly and I wonder where that was feeding in it sounds like the environment determined a lot of gore the guidelines tse di a gonna yang le lebeletse di thrust tsone tse di teng mo lahatseng tsone tse tsa bo unemployment tsa bo citizen economic empowerment jalo is that a big thing that fed into the guideline gore le lebelele gore lahatse le thokaeng le bataeng gore ga se mo ileng gore CEDA e itiretse hela
tota nenga bua thata tsa tsilo tlhera gore ne ra le baeng ke ra gore o nthusitse gore tse dingwe tseo o bonkgakolle ka tsone bo citizen economic empowerment bone bo job creation le diversification ha o ka lebella mo teng mo ne ra lebella di sector tse dingwe re di identify out of the studies tse dingwe tse di dirilweng gona gore which other sectors can we give special consideration to them re sa re gore tse dingwe ga di botlhokwa mme re lebile gore tseo tsone tseo ke tse leng gore they have the propensity to create a lot of jobs and also they are sectors tse leng gore re tota re ntse re le butsana re le maoto a tshupa re le Batswana mo di sectoreng tsone tseo mme gape hanga o ha se ka ihela gompieno ana re mpwe ga ke dumele gore gompieno kgotsa mongwe se tsa dirile ga kitse mme rona ga ise re fande go peo leng gore o ira mo teng tota go dira toothpick ke ra ke ha se ka ihela mme kana gore wa itse gore nako ngwe le ngwe la ha o sena go metsa so se metsa o sontse go ipaka le tsone di flosela jalo mme a re dumele gore ke dio tse leng gore in this day and age
a tshwantse gore ke di tsa go se
mme di guideline tsena se ra go sirang re mphoeng ke gore ga rena go emela gore lo tle go rona o le re mphoeng o bo rinyana ke elitse go aga se sa keletso ya mehela we'll go out and encourage those people gore re batla lo tsena into this particular sector and re tshwaragane le bo leya le ba ministry le bo BDC le BITC gore a re kwale mo mohalong ya dipampiri gore ke di sector tse leng gore tota ba tswana ba ka tsena mo go tsone in terms of the import bill ene ke eletsa ba tswana gore ba lebelle dio tse ba go ministry ba e kae ba tsene mo di website ba bale ba itse gore import bill ya dijo ya eng ke bokae ba tsenya tlhogo ha ba batlang go tsenya tlhogo teng
so gora gore ngwa dio tse ene gore ha ke le mo go bikonte ke batla gore ke te go ta go kopa madi mo go lona ke gona gore ke ko ministering ke bona gore import bill ya dio tse ene gore re di tsenya mo lahatseng ke bokae re spenda bokae be ke ta ka yone ke yone market wa me nka le supetsang gore kana mme re spenda 200 million kio ne ke kopa gore bogolo ke tse bonthabongwa mo gone
re ke ngwe ya dithulaganyo tse o tshwanetse re o dire ha lo yana o le mokopi kana o tshwanetse gore business plan ha o e dira lo yana o e tlhaloganya ke yone market assessment yone gore o itse gore re ha re go botsolotsa dipotso o bo o itse gore market wa go ke ra tlhaloganya gore batho ba dira di business plan mme re rotloetsa gore o le monga kopo lo yana o itse gore thulaganyo e kolwe mo rai
a re tsene mo tsone the guidelines what are the major changes tse no gore le heletse le di tsenya mo guidelines tse disha
the major changes tse tota tse leng gore ka gore bukana ya rona ye ya melawana ya tsamaiso re printile re tsore ga ditse ka sekgowa le ka Setswana le ka Braille go supa yone mo go teng inclusivity mme gape before ke tsana mo gore go changeileng thata kana go hitogileng thata ke tshwaile gore ba bereki ba rona ra ba rutuntsha ra gore ba khone gore ba khone go thusa ka sign language ke ra gore ha re bua ka inclusivity tota re tseneletse re ga re bue ka molomo hela mme tota diphetogo tse leng gore nka di bua tse di changeileng di dintsi di changeileng mo teng mme maketse tse dingwe tse leng gore kana go hana it is the beginning re tla tloela re ntse re kopana gape re tsena mo legatong la bobedi sa ntlha re mphoeng ke gore ne ra identify what you call special sectors ke buile ka tsona these special sectors hanga di ranola retso ke bo manufacturing ke tourism ke energy ke technology ke innovation ke construction ke creative industry tourism ke tsone tse le special sectors the reason why re tsentse dilo tseo these special sectors not only because they have the propensity to create jobs but also tota ha re lebile go a kope they are the drivers of the economy they do a lot more contribution to GDP the economy and they have that ability to do that ha ba tswana ba ka tsena mo teng and the other change re dirile and tsone tseo tse di special tseo re mpwe re dirile certain special consideration out of those special sectors tsone tseo let me give an example ya gore ha re tsena mo security you can actually take up to 50 million how lo mo di special sectors tseo and security sa rona ele personal surety le what we finance go di asset tseo di rekang e be di tsang
ha re khanya personal surety ke bone gantsi in the ke putsa gore ame motswana wa e tlhaloganya kwa gae gore go tabang ha le re personal surety
personal surety right so ke gore ra be re o le rempoempwe wa igana gore sekoloto se ke za gago mme e tla re ha o santse o kgabaganya maoto o bontse o se duela gore ha sena go nyelela ka mantswe mang no kana so se ne re se bona bogologolo rempoeng ke gore bogologolo jole CEDA sentse simologa batho ne ba khona gore ba re company ke eo ke yone tse re nlo wana o shareholder o ho kana company ke yone le kolotang e senna
limited liability
limited liability so ke ra re tsone dio tse re di ela tlhoko mme la totela se be sa phiri ke gona gore ke dumela gore ba tsona ba amogetse melawana ya tsamaiso tota mme se sengwe gape se se hitogileng re mpwe ke morokotso ha o ka lebella ile re kgaoganya dinelo tsa rona tsa gore gona le micro and small le medium le large ha o ka lebella melawana ya tsamaiso ena mo micro and small re likile go ntsha dikgwetlo kana dilabe kana sepehela se leng gore se ka kgoreletsa mo go yo motlana mme gono ho under special sectors interest rate ya rona ke 2.75 for small and micro because ra be re batla gore ba ska ba imelwa ke bokete jwa manukunuku a go duela gore ease of access and the burden of debt must be relieved so ke di kgantse le gore di rileng ka tswella ka bua gone gore mme ha o tla go tsena mo large loans we tell around the special sectors the interest rate is 4.25 that is the bank rate. So what we've done is that really morokotso wa rona ro lomagantse le either prime rate le bank rate gore ha di suta loan o suta le at all times morokotso wa CEDA must not be higher than those two mo di sector ntse re di tsentse me hape mo gongwe mo re go itseng re mpoeng ke gone gore we've given special dispensation ya gore bana le bogole ba tshelang ka bana le bogole bomme le banana security requirements may be waived across all the sectors gore ha o le monana o re mpoenyana o batla go ira business e leng gore gongwe mo sectoreng e seng special depending on gore ya go nwa mo rontseng jang ya go create ditiro tse dintseng jang re gona gore re waive security se la ha ile gore ha special mo gongwe ke location rare re batla gore dilo tsotlhe di ska tsanna mo even areas motho go kgaolong le ena a itse go ka ira kgwebo go mme re gona gore ha o ira kgwebo go tenyana teng e be re hokotsa selo se se tlhokagala.
So rare ha ke bata a re loan ya shop ha ke le mo gaborone kana ke le ko a re ke re kwa radisele le ta lebelela gore nya e go le gaeng e bile e create ditiro gore la gore security requirements tsa me ha ke le go sele ditabedi le botoka gona le ke le mo gaborone.
Yes, that's what we are saying gore let's not concentrate ditlhabololo tsotlhe kwa gona le ba batsadi ba tswana ba nna go mako dikgaolo le one a re agree re batla gore kganye ya gore re lebeletse wa elitist re tsibogetse mme hela maibile ke tshwaela ka kganye gore kana le ha batho ba ntse ba re wa elitist ba sena thulaganyo ya mokwalo wa rona gore rona ha re bona mo loan book ya rona go ntse ya 65% of our loan book is out there not in cosmopolitan areas. So tlile ke dikgantse eno go tsa gongwe ga re di bue ya no be go ra gore batho ba itsela ditshwetso
ha re monana raboga kana number a monana ya change depending on gore ke ka ta thola gore a tota nna ke a tsena mo teng mo ya monana ke what age
ya ke re me gona le moalo wa Minister of Youth o buang ka monana
go lokisa ba tengwe no
gore tota ke 18 to 35 mme le hale ene ya re dina go tsene di hita tsele re ne ra oketsa dingwaga tsa monana mo CEDA to 40 na kwa ya mfarmers ha o ka gakologela isimotse le 18 to 35 puso ya betsa tshotso ya gore enne 18 to 40
yeah so santse re le 40 botoka okay ke batla gore re boele go ya personal surety ke batla gore re he an example e leng gore motswana o khana go e thalaganya ke tsa gore mo di guidelines tsa bogologolo jaaka ne go bua ne re gongwe o tilo go kopa loan bo gongwe go twe re thoka security sengwe maybe an asset or a house me anong ra ha sa thole re bata personal surety. So what's the difference there in la gore la gore ga ke thoke gore ke teke re le mantwa me ke la anela but se ke tebeng ke sira hela ke go saenela gore nya me sekoloto se sone ke ta se duelela
mma ke tlhalose ke tlhalose ntlha e sentle e be ke bua ke correct gore ha gore personal surety ine e se mo melawaneng ile ya bogologolo e ne ntse le teng kana personal surety wa bo ikana gore nna ke le mpoengana ke le Thabo Thamane sekoloto se ke sane mme ha ke santse ke habanya ke hema phego mowa ke tla se duela le ha kgwebo e kawa mme sekoloto se sa go sala ke ntse ke buisana le lona ke ra le CEDA gore ke se duele mme makere in terms of security what we are saying ke gore under special sectors ke gore personal surety wa sign entseng le teng. So what we've changed ke gore rare will only take security of over financed assets tse di financer tse di reka ga o reka motšhini ko India kana ko China motšhini o re tshwanetse re tlhomamise gore mme ko ono o rekang is it the good quality a go no tla dirang se batlang a mme o tla gore ga kwa ka re ke yone asset ya rona hela e di tlong go etsa ya no gompieno ana ka mo internally re dira dithulaganyo tse e leng gore re bua le dibanka gore ba re thuse gore in terms of the other forms of payments tsa gore metšhini ha ile kontle ka gore ga yang ka gore bogologolo ne go na di kgang tsa gore tota ditiragalo tsa gore e be batho ba reka se ba se rekang kontle ko bo India ko bo China ko bo Indonesia hela jalo jalo e be re duella madi ko pele di be di satle kana ha di tla e be e nna tse leng gore ga se tsone tse di orderilwe so re batla go thusa di customer tsa rona gore le bone ba itse gore whatever they are buying from there, more especially that they have never been in touch with those people, they must be aware of the quality of what they are getting. They must be aware of the fact that reliability
so that's more letters like the letter of credit.
Yes, banking, yes. We'll leverage more the banking or reduce the instrument that they protect and run
the client.
We've got many cases where some of our customers have lost money because they've actually sort of in other instances forced us to pay the instrument. It's a bit riskier.
Yeah. One thing that people always balla ka sone ke go mo gato contribution equity being gore monga project o tshwantse gore a tsenye sengwe le ene se se bonalang yone le irleng ka yone in these current guidelines.
In terms of the equity component the contribution ya melawana ya bogologolo ene not less than 15%. Me gompieno rare contribution is can not less than 10%. But that is risk capital.
Yeah.
In actual fact, it's not debt.
Yeah.
Hore raberitse lo yana mo kgwebong yo ha kgwebo e phupane ha re ka ratla go wena re mphoeng re raitso kana wa re kolota because raberile mo go kgwebo ya be phupame akere. So therefore rona ra be re ntsha madi a mangwa e be re wena like a contribution. That contribution can mean cash or in kind. Go re rotloetsa gore ha le re mphoeng o batla go simolla mine kana o batla go simolla large plantation kana dairy project me o hile se khwae ke land board bogolo ka re nyame mageremedisana mageremedisana ke tratelle ke one contribution me kana re bona batswana ba khona go tla ba kopa ba re nya ke batla 100,000 twa gore ke ya go remedisana e be re me kana tota ke eng o sa re every weekend ya la wa kwa ntsa stare se le one ka mo so wa ntsa se and that will be a contribution as an example.
And I think even the research that we've done and the market you can actually cost them in and I was going to ask I think those early works for argument's sake how in both technology kana gona le nna go hantse go build up the prototype before o ka ditisa so things like that to gona go tsengwa le tsone I guess equity contribution
ta gona go tsena le contribution you just need to cost it me ibile ha o bua khanyeo ke tshwaele gore ene ya re malobanyana hale re le moga gore gona le dikgwetlo tse batswana ba di bona me bogolo jang banana kana totala malaba ke budutse potswa gore bagolo bone ba hakae re ka re focus mo bananeng ke be ke yara ba kere kana the social ills gompieno they are more concentrated on young people. The challenges of unemployment is more prevalent on young people, so we need to now nip the bud. So yeah, no, rabe re mo go project facilitation fund leng gore ne ra capitalize ka 5 million I think it was the year before last leng gore e administered la ke leya kana tota rona le leya re tsama mo gore re tantsa leng gore e thusa ka tsone di tse go teng pre-project or pre-feasibility or pre-project costs, you know, bo architectural design, soil testing, EIA, environmental management plan, hela jalo jalo leng gore tota it's a 50% loan 50% grant me kana ha re gore ene ke tsantse ke tshwaele ntle re mpoe leng gore batswana gongwe ba ra gore ha approve to that PFF re bitsa PFF gore re ordinary
gore se tsanetswe
go tsanetswe madi mme ra be re nya le rona gore thusa gore re kgone go bona gore a me kopo a go ka mmega mo and we need to understand as a country gore tota these pre-project feasibility studies are very important, and it doesn't mean gore ha motho a go netse madi a dira studies gore a re ordinarily o go fundile wa ba le ena I thusa ka tshwetso ya gore e re ha ke re go mo ke tsema madi mo teng e be ke dirile kono e tona ya gore assessment ke dirile
You mentioned that 5 million pre-project funding. These guidelines as well. The loan amount. How does CEDA fund? I mean, has CEDA actually ever considered issuing a bond in the market or fund some of its projects?
Yeah. Look, we have considered that, Rampoing. Obviously, the Tulakanya are discussed at the board level and the shareholder level. And then we believe there are certain things that we need to do first as an institution. We back even in terms of saying when we issue a bond, really company, investors also can to be partners with us. So something we back and I must be honest and accept the fact that because we are 100% owned by government, and therefore people, our collections were not necessarily as good as they had been. And our collections started going up. Last year, I think it was last year, we received about 516 million, over half a billion collection. It was unprecedented. But it's a horror. How onale sokolo telerona? How sa kono go duela 20,000 to kona 15,000? O se ga si. La o duele 15,000 teno. E be re bona re ka restructure if there is material valid reasons tsa gore re dire jalo. Yano batswana ho ngene ba sia and then thereby creating a lot more challenges. So certain things are improving, and then when the time is right, I'll let you know.
That brings up another good point on issue have been struggling in the past to with your loans. I've had a few people so a few people have said CEDA, and I've been the business has been struggling, but one, I've learned a bit more. Two, the current guidelines would give me a lot more relief. And restructure my loan. It's an guideline. Somebody else asked, can I approve it to November? I disperse, but probably I change the terms to the new guidelines. Is that conversation saying or you're willing to have?
Yes, your questions were in two parts. One, if I understood you well, one in a hore kimoto in hor kota onza sa kono hudu yala sentle moalo mo shao o bona hor kota moalo o ka mothuse megana rempoe. You know very well as an industry expert in finance hore one of the determining factor ya hwadima motomadi over and above other study palo is character. So ha ile gore ononzo kolota, and I need to make this very clear. Ha ile ononzo kolota me o sa bonale, o sa responded to our calls, o se cooperative. How do you expect us gore rona re institution e be re hala gona le moalo o mosha all of a sudden o bo ta ha bo rinya no ke ha ke batla gore
ka bereka
ke ra gore wena ha no rana business, would you do that to customer ile gore ona tsere sekoloto mo go wena abanyelela e be ra bona no se tso hodila ba re mpempe yano gitsilano mphe more money isikana mphe sekoloto se se ke ra gore those things are fundamental issues tse ile gore so ntse re ipotsa ka tsone mme hela ha no na le rona re ntse re ba re tsoga le wena o re le kudisa re go bona. There is absolutely no reason why we cannot listen to you. Men ya bobedi ya gore ya no gitsere lone ka November ga ise ke dibese a ngatla ka no ka change the condition. The only thing that is going to change going forward ke morokotso ke yone ile gore le ra go change ya gore loan book ya rona yotle ya no ra go charge morokotso o rileng going forward. The dingwe condition that as they were.
So ha ile gore ne le setse le tshwere security same say ke le netsin to kana or a building ye le gore it's not related to the project. So what you're saying is I can't come back and say ke kopa gore release my security.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Because those conditions were prevailing at that point in time. So that's why kere morokotso hela ya ka go banking ha bank at prime lending rate change I agree banka lone ya change.
Yeah.
But then it will depend on you. Monga sekoloto ra go go installment kana o tsala o diela yone. So ya no to tax se sa go change here.
Okay. Let's start jumping into the different sectors. I think a lot of Botswana would have interest in. Let's start ka tourism. Tourism obviously is very wide. Are we saying, and tourism is one of those things like Jaco Bilo Botswana kana gabayo mote. Are we saying, for argument's sake, one, obviously I can lodging, what other parts of tourism does that touch? But also, we know are we saying can I go to an already existing business? Either can wreck your business wholly or even buy a portion of your business. Can I come to CEDA to get funding in that manner?
Yes, these guidelines are very clear around how you can acquire stake in foreign-owned businesses. And what is also important, we don't want you to acquire stake in one passive investor.
Yeah.
Yes, I get it. We want you to be an active investor in that business. And therefore, we can help you to acquire stake. But ordinarily, Ghana is a willing buyer, willing seller.
Yeah.
And Botswana must be very careful around how to register the business. They must do due diligence about. They must be satisfied of what they may value what thing in more business in and make your, and someone will come and say, I'm selling this for 35 million. And then how do I level moral? But what is the value of the business?
It's making 1 million profit a year.
Making 1 million profit a year. Simply because how one owner hotel owners. So Botswana must understand what they must actually do those things. Because we'll then look at the valuation and other things and the reasons why it is selling. Because you also need to ask those questions. How so Botswana into real tourism. We know who have been funding the guest house, lodging 5 rooms, 10 rooms. We want them to now go beyond that. We want Botswana to own brands. We don't want people to come from wherever they come from. Not that we discourage people to invest in Botswana, but we want Botswana to be players and not spectators.
Another one, construction. Construction, does that cover property as well? What does it cover?
Yeah, construction is construction. I mean, it covers anything that is related to construction. It covers also property. But remember, how segregate our loan offering. Portfolio property loans.
Yeah.
But when the actual person who on a property, that person is doing construction. But when I multi-resident, that is a property loan. It is not construction, it's a property, but the person building and again construction.
Yeah.
So construction is all related activities to construction. And the reason why construction is that our ultimate dream as an institution is these big jobs to construction, they must be given to Botswana. We must not be apologetic about creating multi-billionaires. Construction. We shouldn't, and quite honestly. And Botswana how about you have those big jobs? They must actually now they need any technical expertise. That's what we are saying. And we stand ready to assist either the pavement bonds, advance guarantee, the bank. By the way, home piano can see totally how can we work together? Really banker, see us as a partner, as someone who is a catalyst in the economy in terms of startups. Ronaldo banker, then you come and then you graduate. Yeah.
Another interesting one, mining. Mining is an interesting one because Botswana is a mining country, but primarily that's always been done. In the instance where you see private businesses, they tend to be foreign owned. but it's also, mining is also very risky, especially at the startup stage. So in terms of mining, what are we hoping to achieve with that one?
Okay, in terms of play a role, the role that we can play is limited, obviously, to the limit around 50 million.
Yeah.
But in terms of mining harere gore motho gote wa go tsa motlhaba ko molapo sand mining. No, that's not real mining. It's just collecting sand and taking it to another place, point A to B. That can be called mining. And we accept, or we funded people around sand mining, for a lack of a better word.
Yeah.
We know our mining is capital intensive, but we are saying this is an area where Ronaldo BDC and the other funders or DFIs or commercial lenders, we can put a portion here on real institution and then have co-funding with other entities. So we are ready to do that. How about a granite mining opportunity? Can I go Pique or go Tobane or wherever go Gabana opportunity go? Oh, it's a reki make relay whatever I've done in terms of feasibility studies. The granite top ceiling, maybe 150 million, CEDA, 50 million to cover this portion. We are ready to do that.
So would you quarry Jalo would fall under that?
We funded the quarry, yes.
Okay, great.
But obviously everything has to make viable sense, I guess.
Yes. Of course, everything. So it's out of everything is based on the financials, obviously.
Yes.
A contentious one, which I think, but I think people can't quite wrap their heads around how that was going to work. The creative industry. I think Banan Lebaka feeling excluded in the economy, and I think it's a welcome move recognize that they can step forward. But I think most people don't have clarity what kind of things would that cover. Does that mean hakele motho a diletso nkata go tsaya madi a di speaker le bo di stage hakele so pedi, can I come and build a studio? And who is my surety? Will that be good enough your security? As long as with the speakers as well, I guess.
Yes. We are really the creative industry is broad. Yeah. Actually I was pleasantly surprised the creative industry also includes such things as architecture. Architectural designs, because pleasantly surprised, because I never thought, not that I had expected I never thought about it. So creative industry includes a lot of things, music, art, audio visuals, architecture, and anything that requires you to actually use your intellectual capital, if I may say that, intellectual capital. To be able to design something, or out of that something, you will then be able to create value out of it. That's the creative industry. The creative industry. So it's really broad, and we've borrowed, the definition of inclusivity of creative industry around some of the definitions by Batwa, intellectual design and other schools of thoughts. So what we are going to do out of that is that what you mentioned earlier on, obviously we'll take to the camera, the speaker, the amplifier, the collateral. But because creative industry differs, the patents, they will then go to SIPA, the register. We have had discussions in SIPA where we want to be able to register that patent when they register everything in
a financial
financial interest.
For the financial interest,
yes, that's what we are going to be doing. There is really no problem in that particular aspect. The only issue, not rather an issue, but we are seeking assistance from anywhere, is around the valuation of the particular IP. because there are different methods of valuing IP, very complex in terms of saying that how the relay happens in value thinking, because I agree you are looking at the future uptake thing. So gizonze le hore mo bo gompieno njana re ntse re tsholetse le bo mankge ba ile hore ba dupa hore ba ka real di model tse dintse, but that doesn't stop us from continuing. That doesn't stop us from continuing. Even I wouldn't want to discourage Batswana hore ba re nyama reme le hore wa go evaluate ya. No, we move forward, we continue.
Another industry thing which has similar problems to the creative industry, technology, in that you'll find to be open cards. I'm involved with a technology startup that specifically deals with data analytics and consultancy. Our biggest problem is the ability to construct a team, because initially to be able to have batho ba leho ba bereka for a given period of time. You sometimes need to work for a year. And I think it's similar to the creative industry in that you're not necessarily producing a physical, tangible product, but it's something after you almost have to work for a year and a half before you can start seeing Madiata. So that would almost be working capital. And I found since the guidelines on the people in the technology space have been trying to find out how can you truly help us in that space. So something like that, almost working capital funding. Is that something you would be willing for companies to come to you and look at?
Rampoing, what is very key is that people must come to us. It's important for them, whatever idea it's important to come to us. Incidentally, I saw Facebook posting, I can't remember the name of the person, and who does not represent us, by the way. I decided about 6-7 years ago. It's a small stock. I was a poster and then trying to create a lot of havoc over so many small stocks, so many goats in a little space. That information that was supplied by that person is incorrect. But to baska ba utwa motho a re gontse ana ga bereke go sida motho ba tle go sida ba tle go iputlwela. Getting to your question, people must come to us. What we've realized is that lending is an art. It's not science, especially when you get to issues you can't have one size fits all. You can have, it can be a square, a hole, a square or a rectangle or whatever. So you look at all different angles, and the guidelines ordinarily they will not be exhaustive, in terms of how you treat certain things. So what we have at CEDA is what you call patient capital. I always tell my colleagues that what we can, talk about in the economy, and we are the largest DFI in Botswana right now as we speak, is patient capital. How would go and lending is give and take. Because we are now you must also understand in terms of lending, in terms of the projects and how they have failed. So that's why we need to come together and agree. So that has a no 50 million as is. We'll give you, we understand your total projects requires 50 million. But because you are going to be in the technology space, and then you are going to spend the first year, we design, we whatever you are doing, the Apple lane, or what we are marketing, or what respond. Let's look at the first phase of it and deal with it. What do you need as a second phase? Traveling,
scaling out and
scaling out. Then you will come, okay, the first phase, the uptake is actually important. So what we see, what we normally see is that the person would want the total amount at once. And it really puts us under a lot of pressure. Example, horticultural project. and then ga ona sediba. And then you know gore water is a requirement for the produce. And then we say to you, Rempoe, Roho approves 2 million wa gago ke you. Part of the approval la teng gona le sediba mo teng. And then you come to us and say, no, ke batla go reka di-pipe le koloi leng ke age shede. Be re no, ema pele. Let us drill first. Re bone gore a metsi a teng. E be re test yield le suitability ya metsi a teng. Le the chemical composition ya metsi a teng. After that, ha re satisfied gore that is okay for what you want to do. Then we will implement others. So ke gona go iteleng batswana o ka re ra go tlana teng ela. Me rona e le gore we mean good. So I agree with you, right? So I confirm gore those people can come.
You mentioned something that I think is important, that's almost related to monitoring. Issue okay, the project might be worth 10 million, but how much this 10 million you're going to spend it over 2 to 3 years? Do you get involved in sort of funding at this stage? In some places slab pele kana ha le sela approve le tsenya madi ha lote ke ra re thola re ruta gote gate batho ba sena go tsaya madi mo ba go reka dikoloi ra jwa hana ra go ja madi. Is that something, how do you guys monitor that over time jalo?
Magire Rampoint tota magi ki buelle batswana gore those things tsa go misuse di funds are few and far between. You know, and I must thank Batswana gore they've come out now to realize gore how we rajalo tota wa go itsetsa wena, you know, wa go itsetsa wena, because at the end of the day the long arm of the law never gets tired. So bogologolo, yes, you know, those things happened. Ne re khona go disburse madi into your account, but it doesn't mean gore le gompieno we can't. That's why I agree relationship, the character is important, because into this relationship, you then have to give us the trust that we can actually give you everything that you require. Some of the beneficiaries of Compiano, and then everything that you buy, receipt, and they do that. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. So refund at this stage, but what we are cognizant of is the time frame. For instance, there's a complaint there or 2000, 50% bill. And then people are complaining, but remember, the informal sector is highly mobile. You see, and we accept that, where they move from one place to the other and in pursuit of
opportunities,
and that's fine. But what we are saying is that the informal sector, your trading kind of conduct and strategy, we give you X amount of money, bring those receipts. So that is a pain in some people, and we don't know why it's a pain. More accountability.
Yeah. Touching on manufacturing, one of the things that I think is very commendable in the current guidelines, one of the questions that I got on social media was, to set up a manufacturing thing. I might have to build a warehouse, which effectively is a property, and could do that over 20 years. Then the machinery on air would be, ordinarily maybe 10 to 12 years in terms of use of life, and then possibly the vehicle and asset finding would be, 5 years, 5 to 7 years. Is that something saying structure 10 million? Is that something that we can break down into pockets of different structures in terms of the loan, in terms of the overall loan limit?
Yes, no, we do that. The asset classification, we
yes.
do that. Because there's no point in saying, even from an accounting perspective, you depreciate a motor vehicle over
5 years, yeah.
Yes. There's no point in saying, Hilux, and then you want to pay it over 20 years. Yeah, because in 20 years, yes, what will be the value of the vehicle?
Yeah.
So we consider that. I mean, we classify the assets in terms of the classes. Yeah. So you will find that you would have a loan equipment over a certain period of time, property over a certain period of time, working capital loan re khona re duele within a certain period of time, and normally working capital tota under certain circumstances rather no may you duele over 2 years. So
yeah,
because tota I appreciate the working capital gana your salaries, you know, rentals, fuel, and all sorts of things. So
yeah. So I want us to sort of get towards the end. One of the questions said quite a bit that I've seen quite a bit on which are not necessarily related to you, but I can understand why about because they believe you could probably influence
me as a person or CEDA.
CEDA.
Oh, okay.
Issue ya market access. You know, when I look at in Bonobo technology, even in agriculture and all of that, a lot of people sort of complain about, yes, CEDA can fund us, but at an ecosystem level, we've got a problem where people then, you know, the ecosystem isn't necessarily willing to take our thing. So I mean, in agriculture, it's easy. It's where the shopper won't buy our things, but they will go buy them in SA. I can relate that to technology as well, and to say, you know, our government, our parastatals, all of our major companies all use IT software, but I bet none of that software is actually designed Gebatswana or even supplied Gebatswana. And to sort of say, is there a conversation in terms of in terms of the ecosystem, and also I guess as a challenge to CEDA, those kind of businesses, can we start using and changing even our procurement models to the small Motswana company should be able to supply, you know, your analytics software, your accounting software, Is that a discussion that's being had?
Yes, this discussion has always been there. Maybe not in the context of the focus we bring around, you know, some of the issues you've raised now. It's about the software, but generally at a broader perspective, let's use Botswana. You know, remember BITs is doing Pusha BW.
Yes.
You know? And we are part of the support of Pusha BW in terms of, especially in manufacturing, where we profile Botswana River Fund. And we are basically saying, look, you know, for all intents and purposes, these guidelines are not necessarily the sole single solution of the problems.
Salahats.
They are not. And I want to remind Botswana Hore, has already the arrival of these guidelines signifying the end of all the problems. Because it's an ecosystem, as you've rightly indicated. And remember, similar the campaign at 24 hours payment to people. Because one of the greatest challenges, especially on the small, medium enterprises, is the fact that and not only government, even the private sector. And how reliability to focus on more level private sector. And private sector, government is not doing this, is not doing that. But the same private sector must also walk the talk.
90-day payments.
Exactly. And why should when you supplied a commodity to a private sector company, when you want to be paid, give us a discount? Why should it be like that? Why should you finance them? Because you're actually using their goods and services. And now for me, that is very unfair. And we normally see that very prevalent in the mining sector, where they will basically say, you know, for you to be able to be paid within 5 days, 2.5% discount. And I think that is totally wrong and unacceptable. And you know, in terms of market access, you know, we rabua rempwe, rabua because rare, how loko hanti, how loko tabo, how loko chobe. Dirisa Botswana baba mo locality. Only when you cannot see them, you know, you can actually go outside. Me happy. Leha moto ele hore la mona ona le shopunya na hale. Don't gauge or judge the person by the size of the shop or hana capacity hore o ka deliver whatever tender ya cancel kana ya whatever department in that locality. You know, monele rona will actually do that capacity. And then the other aspect that you want to le rona le Botswana, when we are given an opportunity, I read the risk. Let us supply on time. If there are challenges, di bue beforehand o kope nako, because ha gongwe o tla bo tshwere tender document yana ele purchase order, and then you come to CEDA order that thing o tshwanetse re deliver the following day, and then now submit gompieno. You expect us now gore re tle go le sengwe le sengwe ono e be re le bagana le aga. So we are basically saying le rona as citizens, we must be part of the solution. So talking about market access will never be enough, but we'll always talk about it. We encourage people gore ba thuse batswana, and one of the issues especially in retail, you would find that CEDA and other institutions, sectors rather, company letter of
intent.
Yeah. Yes. A letter of intent, it does not help us with anything.
Non-binding.
Well, even if it's non-binding, but the mate list, I can be able to buy so many kg of tomatoes from Rempoing at this price over a certain period of time.
Yeah.
That gives an indication here the level of demand you got on. But hell, full stop. It doesn't also help me, and yet the same people rona and so I'm trying to amplify these things.
Something that you mentioned earlier, which I think is very important for us to take out for Bato Fola downstairs Kamande. I think that element so we were talking about how much research you guys have done, how much you've learned over time. Can we sort of safely say Lena Lidi industry specialists that are sitting downstairs, find out business these are my problems, and okay, because I find maybe a lot of us sit at home, ask ourselves questions, yes.
So thank you very much, Rempo. Yes, we do have industry specialists, but they are not enough. I mean, I'm not going to say they're unlimited. We've got agronomists, but I will encourage people. That's why the government conceived local enterprise authority, so that they can be able to assist. I would encourage people to go to LEA for any business intervention. We talk. I mean, we give them information, they give us information, and such that by the time it's the possibility of funding. I was quite happy the employees CEDA, my colleagues were telling me what Tota office ya Golea CEDA za Hanzi. Almost 90% of the projects that you Golea through CEDA in the Hanzi office, they get approved. That was encouraging, and we need to up that 90% to almost 99.99%. Because kana kaswana hote mashigotwa to be ngatlale paper. Salabesetla motsa camera. Sometimes when we mean good, that's why I get encouraged or by Golea pili. I'm not saying Rabakan Bagat. How when we mean good, we advise a me in their mind. And then the appeals letter would then say, an officer again and people must know officers don't approve. I don't have any approval authority. CEO. And people must not say officer and I approve. The officer can only recommend. Yeah. And then committee so I would strongly advise Golea by the research. They've got market access specialists, they've got information, they've got policies, they've got all the data, and such that by the time they have a sale rate.
And I think that speaks to issue where that I saw somebody raise they can't write their own business plans, so are we saying if they go to LEA, that will probably be taken care of and they don't need to be spending money of private consultants?
I can't speak conclusively but what I can say is advise our because LEA does assist with doing they don't do the business plan for you. They will
Yeah.
assist you, because I think the essence is that, remember, Rempoing, when you get into business, you are now saying you are taking entrepreneurship as an alternative to formal employment.
Yeah.
And therefore, what Leah does is that they will say, because they want you to be part of the business plan. And that particular business plan, I approve you, CEDA or any other lender, on a roadmap. So you don't put it on the shelf. You basically say, Niki focused libukana, am I doing that? Because you always have to make reference to that. But what I see our good citizens is that once approval is now done, even that business plan, they will not even know what they haka. But they about more business, and handle the challenge, they don't go back to it. And what it does, we then spend more money. Let's now redo your financials or your accounting records and everything. And record keeping is important. So now I would suggest by Golia, so that Leah takes them through the value chain.
Turnaround times. I'm sure what are you hoping or aspiring for in terms of the turnaround time?
I think turnaround time is a function of many variables. One is a function of repeat sales, for 14 days, for 30 days, for 45 days, depending on, or anything above 10 million body.
Yeah.
So the board meets every other month. So it's about 45 days. Then we take 2 weeks, the management. But it's also a function, the quality that is coming in the business. And that is one thing saying for Botswana they never talk about. You see, if you've done a business plan, it's porous in terms of the submission of the information. Certainly it will take us more time, because let's say less. I've said to employees, let us do the checklist compliance.
Yeah.
On compliance. You come here, or check out compliance. If you don't comply, you take it back. Tender. Yeah. You go to a tender, if you don't go through the compliance stage, and that's it.
You don't receive it.
You don't receive it. So we are going to have to become more stringent, because we have suffered accept and the applicant there, and I'm not trying to say my officers or we have run as an institution yes, we have, and we are guilty of that, and we've said they must not happen. And I'm not trying to say we are clean, no, and that's not what I'm saying, but we have said we are going to become more stringent around what comes in. Don't accept it. But remember how checklist. Remember how you can then be able to find something in the reading. Application form really. And I think you've seen it. Application form arrow. We request or an application for we type put it in that format, because officer how praise level. How about the information? Why is your how about like a 100-page document? Information all over. It's going to take us more time to look for that information. So turnaround time is also a function of the relationship and assistance that we can get from the applicant. But now we commit to sticking to our turnaround time in the best possible way.
Then another one, eligibility. But similar to issues there's another one that I kept seeing recurring effectively somebody who go by ITC and has got bad credit. What eligibility criteria are there for apply a loan?
Agree CEDA is a lender. I guess.
Yeah.
So as a lender, one of the critical aspects that you do, let's say my dearly CEDA, and you go into a factory.
Yeah.
So are you going to say or how check a credit conduct he's not in good standing? would you want to lend to that person? And as a person that has benefited from us, would you do that? Well, it's up to you how you're going to answer it. But the fact of the matter is that let me take you through this aspect because it's important for people to understand. In the past, we never used to take the credit history amoto, impede access. You see, so and we used to do it in the past. Now, whether you are in the matter between or whatever. We said, you know what, this is a new business. Let us give the person the chance to rehabilitate.
Yeah.
That's what we adopted many years ago. Every decision that we take, Rampwe, it is because there is a baseline, there is a history over what we tried to do. Analysis we have disregarded that. Are the businesses surviving? Are the businesses performing? If we tell over 95% of those businesses, but what they have gone back. So that says something. It's an important aspect. And therefore, the second aspect is that if you recall it, it was administered by NDB. It then came to CEDA. And we followed people. We follow 20,000. Tan liduele nkare ka moso yone kganye ya go le blockela dilo tse dintsi
over 20 million
on a viable plan and people didn't come. Ra advertiser ra iraing ra hira di debt collector ba founela batho, instead people then started going where a go te duela wa go tsa honorable go ra tla mwele rona re renya se tse honorable tla hela re buisana o duele whatever you can with a low hits. So then, when people get an opportunity, they would come to us and say, yeah, no, like you do 20,000 to come for 20 million. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't. Because character is important. And I want to make it very clear. You should not pay your debts simply because you want to come and get money. You should pay your debts because it is the right thing to pay. How you cannot forget it. Some of them have said, and I said, but you are going to forget or so get out of you, Rempwing, Rare, Amat the Corona, Ruto, Botato Jabonili, Harre or Harbat, Rahorinia, we are going to open doors. Duel a Billy, and then, you rehabilitate yourself over a period of time, and then you can come.
Gona le khanya maranyane batho ba re kana pumpeni bilana go le bo di covid a tota re tshwantse gore be re fall downstairs. Do we have a thing where are you as a person able to talk to your team virtually and even potentially apply online?
Yes, all our employees, we've got MS Teams, you know what, they can this virtual communication. We've got toll-free number. We've got an email inquiries at CEDA.co.bw. COVID relief fund email. What is worrying is that despite all these things, Rampwe, when we launched the guidelines, just within a 4 weeks period of launching the guidelines, we had about 25,000 inquiries. And out of those 25,000 inquiries, 20,000 were walk-ins. 20,000 were walk-ins. Lahare le ka go
COVID.
Lahare le ka go raba tore ba gaetso. Phone, of course, you'd believe the phone but there's an email. In this age, the email, you just create a Gmail account and then you simply send your inquiries. So we'll still continue to encourage people over there is on all other platforms. We've approved loans online without the person setting foot here. Without. Like say the document is verify. But what we are also seeing, which is important for us for me to note, is that because of COVID, re lemogile bangwe ba batlang go tsaya madi a CEDA ka bohirihiri. Bangwe ba tla go dirisa di-purchase order tse e leng gore they've expired. Mme ke bolelele batswana gore order nngwe le nngwe ra e verify. Mme ebile ga re e verify mo mothong yo o rileng re go verify ko go ene. Rona re ipatlela re verify mo go ene. Gore a mme order eo is it legit? A e siame. Ke ra dilo tse dintsinyana ke tsone tse di dirang gore ga gongwe re thatagatse melao. Mme le batho e le bone ba irang gore re thatagatse melao ya ka re tshwanetse go re dire.
So in sort of final thoughts, related to these guidelines that are now running, what does success look like for you? Is there a target amounts? Are there target number of businesses? What are you hoping you will see in the next 2 to 3 years?
Okay. We do have targets that are on a year-to-year basis. Of course, there's a corporate strategy. We've got targets on a yearly basis. For instance, in terms of funding, on a yearly basis, we target to fund about 450 million worth of projects on a year-to-year basis. But we can't be talking about this financial year because total, since March up to now, total COVID has really affected almost everyone. But in terms of success indicators, na kitla level or rather me and my team, level the uptake around the special sectors to defining because lerona related di pele re run na ha tsira nguna gore tota how do we tweak our strategy now to align to the new guidelines and also to any other interventions by government. So but I'm happy to inform you and the listeners since we launched these guidelines we've approved almost 40 million worth of applications and then 20 million I think in manufacturing. For me, that is encouraging. It's encouraging because, and then the other quarter in way tourism. For me, that is encouraging because now people are saying these are special sectors. I haven't seen maybe Hongo submit local class of praise you, but I haven't seen more committing a chair the creative industry despite this opportunity. But I'll give them the benefit of doubt. I can only say Rampoing, Ronaldo CEDA, we've laid the foundation. It is up to Botswana to basically take advantage of the opportunities and in a meaningful way.
I think sort of my final thoughts would be, firstly, to thank you for the opportunity that you've given myself and Botswana Kohai to listen. To talk to you directly and be able to to interact. Sababedi, I would say I would ask for your permission over the next few weeks potentially. For us to, especially on the special sectors, ke kopane nabo re leke go thrasha out re tse feedback from batho re bone like you were saying on board the creative, sit down with them, find out what they're trying to do and do a few more of these your team. I think that would be very that'd be very good in terms of break it down ka di sector. So with your permission, I hope I can do that going with your team. And then also challenge just in the same way that you led for the 24 hours payment day. I'll just love to remind you challenge market access firstly as CEDA to take up and ensure Botswana, and then to encourage in the ecosystem to do the same. So I think with that really your final words, and I think we'd be finished.
Thank you, Rempoing. Let me thank you most profoundly for Ole Monano Motswana for taking your time, because you also have valuable time that you could have used elsewhere. Only part and parcel of the engagement ya ho isa Botswana ko pele ho tlabolla Botswana ho ira jalo. And you could have decided to do other things. You could have decided to stay in the background and criticize anything and everything that comes. But you took the role ya gore makie ko bathumba ke go na hatsi le bone ke ba retse kutwe ke tse dipotso tsa Botswana. That's what we want. We only have this Botswana. This is the only Botswana that we have, and we must embrace this Botswana. And we can only progress as a nation if we invest our time and energy in positivity. And the challenges, let's see the positives out of these challenges, because when you forever look at the negatives all the time, you then lose opportunities. We are not saying let's not look at what could
let's
have,
not criticize
we are not saying that, but let's criticize, obviously. Right, so you are more than welcome. You know, we can't do this alone. We can't. We need someone who can be able to look at us with a different mindset and eye and say, and that's how we can improve. It's continuous improvement. So I agree, we should do that. I accept the challenge of market access. Ronaldo CEDA will do the best that we can. Me happy market access rate. So kilebezo wala la hore reberga Libya ITC around export. Duman Libya ITC urban export development program. Lorna kwano renali unitaire tamangele hore kia export hore. Ha projecti mwere fundile. Kana mwehela mu marketing ibadla kwa export. Ibadla kwa export BITC ile Botswana. Bakhono tsana hore na ibere okay. Ibere tsana into the value chain ibere fund. So we've agreed on that in terms of the market access. So we'll do the best that we can around market access, real institution. Merabele na ke go kope sengwe se le wano o le mantsutsudi wa economy le ditlakarra go University of Botswana kere. Le go University of Botswana, and obviously it's going to be a long process that would formally engage the university. It's important that the entrepreneurship culture at university, especially for students by business studies and entrepreneurship, they must actually, you know, have the real practical exposure around running a business. And also, we will need or request our if you need to call us, whatever topic, we are available, because that is the only way we can actually spread the gospel. That is the only way we can build this future, especially around the young people. We are always ready and willing to go university. The example of what has gone wrong, what could go wrong, what is a good business model, and what have you.
I think, I'm sure about our business clinic, even my colleagues are listening, and we will definitely come back knocking. And yeah, I think I would like to say thank you to the people that took their time as well. And thank you. So I think we've come to the end of our session.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.